Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 oozes with so much masculinity that I feel like I've been in a desert for the last few years. It has themes that nobody wants to go near anymore. For courage and honor, for brotherhood, for the Emperor. It's so good. It's such a fun game. But the entire time while I was playing it, I couldn't help but shake this feeling of nostalgia. Like the game reminds me of something I've lost, something that we have lost. You know, I used to play a lot of games. I still play a lot of games, but I used to play a lot more. Games were far more consumable. You pick it up, I could put it down, I could enjoy it for a while, I could play it with my friends, and I could leave it and not feel guilty for doing so. But we've gotten away from that. Space Marine 2 is one of those games. I've picked it up, I've played it, I've enjoyed it, I've played it with some friends, I plan on playing more of it and doing some of the co-op and the PvE and all that good stuff, but at the exact same time, I'm not committed to it. I can walk away at any moment. And while you may say that's true for other games, I think that we've lost that feeling. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about my experience playing Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, but I want to talk about what we've lost. The middle ground. I love Space Marine 2. I love it so much that I've now spent hours upon hours watching lore videos from Bricky and Wes Hammer on YouTube. I think the game is so good that while it's not going to be as widespread, it's going to have a similar impact as Baldur's Gate 3 did on Dungeons & Dragons. A well-crafted, well-delivered experience in a universe that you know little about, that's going to drive you to want to know more about it, to have context behind what you've seen, or to answer questions you have and push you to find more experiences to enjoy. Space Marine 2 is an improvement over its predecessor, but regardless if you've played that game or not, it's a great introduction to the 40k universe. It's grotesque and ugly, yet beautiful and fascinating. It's merging of man and machine, fantasy and reality on a scale that leaves you awestruck. Scale. Now that's a word this game embodies. I cannot tell you how many times I slow walked through areas, panning the camera around, drinking in the scale and brutality of war. The sheer number of enemies, the warring factions in the distance, it made it an experience that could only be described as a meat grinder. Countless waves of Astra Militarum thrown against unrelenting hordes of Tyranids as they fall like disposable distractions, while we Space Marines cut through them like a hot knife through butter. So many games want to be big rather than feel big, and Space Marine 2 feels larger than life. The narrative and the atmosphere of this game are immaculate. Saber Interactive have made one of, if not the best, adaptations of Warhammer 40k. The detailing on the battle barge, the ships and weapons, the character adaptations, roles within ranks, how characters interact with one another, the scale of war in the background, the blood, the viscera, the music, and the voice acting, all of it is near perfect. From a visual and audio perspective, I felt like I was in this war and in this universe. I took every chance I could to listen to audio logs or eavesdrop on passing conversations, speeches, and sermons, all of them, because I was starving for the next bit of lore to add to my experience, and I think that's a byproduct of the main cast of characters' performances, or in the case of Space Marine 2, the lack thereof. Titus and company are not the most talkative bunch, and they shouldn't be. They're Marines. It's all about the mission and killing their enemies and serving the Emperor, not their personal thoughts, opinions, or feelings. Over the last few years, it feels like every modern game and television show or movie, they're all allergic to stoicism. They can't allow characters to be silent. They need a character to be complicated, to have feelings, and to need to talk about those feelings because they don't know how to tell a great story without words. I can't help but feel if this game came out from a major AAA studio, Titus would have multiple monologues in front of a mirror backed by a licensed My Chemical Romance soundtrack. Brother Gadriel would be the comic relief, and Chiron would be the true villain all along, but don't worry, he's not that bad. He's just fighting the system that separated him and his sister because, well, they wouldn't allow her to carry out her dream of being a space marine, and now he's vowed to tear down the system. Cut to a scene of him dying in Titus's arms in the rain, Titus crying out, wishing the world was different. That's one of the first things that I noticed when I started playing this game, is that it was simple characters, simple story. Even in cutscenes, there really wasn't a lot of dialogue. There was no long, drawn-out exposition or anything of that nature. Even in the scenes where characters were showing some doubts or suspicions of Titus, it was all drowned out almost immediately. Because think about it. Thoughts, opinions, feelings, this stuff is heresy. These are space marines. Any humanity they have is buried under 2,000 pounds of armor, genetic enhancements and manipulation, body enhancements, and, well, faith in the Emperor. Over the last few years, games have really dove into this idea of telling simple stories through complex characters. There's no such thing as just a regular villain anymore. All of them are a victim of circumstance more than anything else. They have tragic backstories that we need to feel and we need to empathize over, rather than just being a bad guy and good guys being good guys. Though, to be honest, in Warhammer, I mean, everybody's kind of an asshole, so it doesn't really matter that much. But it's just gotten to the point now where they think that they're trying to do something theatric, but in the end, all they're doing is giving stories that are uninspired and completely predictable. They're doing the same as everybody else is doing. Space Marine 2 is a game of few words, as it should be, and it feels damn fun to play. I love making reviews like this because it gives me the opportunity to help my viewers get to know me a little bit better. So I'm going to let you guys in on a secret. I love third-person shooters. I love the perspective, the aiming, the way it makes melee combat look and feel. I have thousands of hours across the entire Gears of War franchise, especially Gears of War 1. Canals and Mansion were my MLG-level slaughterhouse. Space Marine 2 takes me back to those days. The chaos of the overwhelming enemy numbers, the gore on screen at every moment, the slow and methodical movement and firing make you feel like you're a bipedal tank. Firing weapons, using grenades, jumping in the air and slamming down on enemies, it all felt incredible. I still remember the wave of third-person shooters back in the late and early 2000s when it was a fad for developers, but it was a fad because players loved it. And I think the reason why we loved it so much is just because we could see that much more. First-person perspectives are restrictive, limited, and tunnel-visioned. In third person, you can take in all of your surroundings, react to what's happening next to you or behind you, drink in the immensity of the game, all the while playing it more tactically. In games like Space Marine 2 or Gears of War, I feel like I'm playing chess with a mobile wood chipper. I'm shooting an enemy, I'm pushing forward, I'm going to execute this one, turn around, throw a grenade over here, switch my weapons, use melee on this group, switch back to melee, pick up that ammo over there, and then move to the final group. Every combat scenario feels like a dance of death and carnage as I carve my way through every enemy encounter and reach my goal. My only real criticism of the game is that the dodge and parry mechanics, as well as ally NPC AI, seem to completely interrupt that flow. While I understood the goal that they were going for, the combat always felt a bit foreign. I really enjoyed parrying small enemies that were about to jump on me. It was really satisfying to see me kill them, but some markers would show while others wouldn't. And since there isn't any animation canceling on higher difficulties, any mistakes that you make are punished heavily. Accidentally parrying when you need to dodge, even if there's enough time for you to be able to react to your mistake before the enemy's attack resolves, you won't be able to because you're still in the animation of parrying or using a melee. This wouldn't be as taxing if the ally NPC AI was moderately helpful, but I always find them shooting at enemies that haven't even hit the battlefield yet. They're completely useless when you're defending objectives. They stand still after they stun an enemy, and ultimately they serve as no distraction or help when you're being attacked by vast waves of enemies. I say I know what they were going for here because 1, you're a space marine, not an acrobat, and 2, the game is obviously tuned for multiplayer and not single player. Once you have 1 or 2 friends in the group, the game transforms. The pace evens out, any major issues that you have seem to disappear immediately. I'm reminded of the times back from 2004 to 2010 where you would go out to buy games specifically just to play with friends. Army of Two, Kane and Lynch, Halo, Gears of War, Resident Evil 5, The Club. These social co-op experiences that are best enjoyed either on the couch or online with friends or coworkers. I had my friend hop in and play. We haven't played a game like this in a really long time, and it was like nothing changed. We bantered back and forth, making fun of one another, broing out over cutscenes, communicating strategies, and jokingly role-playing as we cut through waves of enemies. This is one of the reasons why I believe Helldivers 2 blew up when it did, because so many games are competitive now. Hell, almost all of media is so polarized and oppositional that you can't even escape it in the first place, and as such, I think it's starting to begin this growing hunger within players and within consumers where they want things that are a little bit more leaning into the side of community and camaraderie more than anything else, because you're not really finding that anywhere else. I think this is by and large in part due to AAA's push into live service. They all want to make their money printing machine, and we all know that competitive games seem to be the best at doing that. But with that said, I just really haven't seen a lot of games that have done anything like this over the last few years. And more games are getting away from this cooperative nature and cooperative play. I mean, think about it. Halo 5 and Halo Infinite didn't even have couch co-op or split screen. Halo, of all games. Mind you, that's 343, and that's a whole other problem in and of itself. But with that said, Space Marine 2 just feels like a pure video game. Unpolluted. There's no drawn-out exposition. It's not trying to put me on long grinds or chases or anything like that. It's just calling back to something that I think that we've lost and we haven't had for a long time, and it's just good, dumb fun. That's it. Space Marine 2 isn't trying to do anything that hasn't been done. It's just a simple and fun video game. While there are definitely some examples in recent memory, I can't help but shake the feeling that we just don't get a whole lot of games like this anymore. Sure, part of it's likely due to the industry's overwhelming push into live service, a trend that I think is being bucked by the most successful games over the past few years, but it's been a long time since I've played a game that felt so consumable. A game that once I started playing it, I never once thought of whether or not I'd actually have the time to finish it, how long it would take me to finish, if I would fall behind in content or forget mechanics if I walked away from it. It's just simple, dumb fun with no strings attached. I remember back in the old 360 days of achievement hunting, how most games, AAA or not, were fun, memorable, and easy to consume. Def Jam Fight for New York, Burnout, Need for Speed Most Wanted, King Kong, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, The Darkness, Army of Two, Brutal Legend. None of these games were king of that era, but they were the supporting cast that made gaming feel so damn worthwhile at the time. Well, yeah, there were still our fair share of garbage games. There were so many middle industry titles of little critical renown that were worth your money and didn't make you feel like every single game that you needed to buy was the game. Sometimes it was good just to play a game. One of my fondest memories back then was this little-known game called 50 Cent Blood in the Sand, where you played as 50 Cent and the G-Unit. You played a concert in the Middle East where you were promised a $10 million diamond-encrusted skull upon completion. Some gang members steal it, and now you and the G-Unit are on a mission to go get what's yours. It was a stupid, funny, third-person shooter that had no right being as fun as it was. It adapted mechanics from the club, where bonus objectives would randomly pop up, like blow up barrels, or get X amount of headshots, or only use pistols, making you and your friend race to see who can achieve the goal first and rack up a higher score at the end of the run. Again, it was just dumb fun. It didn't feel like a game that was being made by a studio that had everything riding on the line. And it came from a time where, as a player, I didn't feel like everything was riding on every purchase that I made. And I think that's one of the problems that we have today, that feeling of finality with every purchase, the sense that every single game has to be the one. And it comes from a shift in both the industry's approach and our view of what games are today. This constant pressure that every game needs to be a massive hit, to have endless updates, to have something that demands long-term commitment, and it's led to this feeling. Developers now treat games like services, and players have been conditioned to believe that every purchase is an investment, rather than just a chance to have fun. It's exhausting. Somewhere along the way, we lost the middle ground, those mid-tier games that weren't trying to be the biggest thing in gaming, but were good, fulfilling experiences that were worth our money. We need to get back to a time where we could simply play a game, we could buy it, play it, and walk away from it feeling satisfied. Not every purchase should feel like a commitment for life. Sometimes it's good to just enjoy something for what it is, no strings attached. And you know, from my perspective, Space Marine 2 is one of those games. I played it, I enjoyed it. I'm going to go back and play more with some friends, do some of the PvE and PvE content and stuff like that. But outside of that, I don't feel like I'm committed to this game. I don't feel like I'm locked down or married to it in any way. And I think that feeling is coming from the industry itself. I feel like the players, the consumers, can feel the pressure that these studios are exuding on their employees and exuding on these games. And it's because of their mismanagement of money. They're not investing the right way. They're putting way too much into one boat. And if that boat sinks, well, then the studio's done. And it shouldn't be that way. You know, I've seen a lot of people talking about game prices and how they need to go up again, talking about $100 and things like that. $70 is a lot of money. And I think that's also on the side of the players. We feel the pressure because we're spending so much money on these games in the first place, and there's no flexibility there. I'm on the side asking for more flexibility. It's one of the reasons why I mostly buy indie and AA and single A games, is because there's a lot of price flexibility there. More times than not, I end up getting a way better deal for the money that I spend. I spent like $15 on Core Keepers. I put like over 100 hours into it. I think I spent $5 on Terraria at one point. I have like 1,200 hours in that. So I want to see more flexibility in experiences and in prices, and we just don't seem to have that as much as we used to. I desperately want to go back to the days of junk food games, where even from some of these AAA studios, they would put out games that would be more like middle tier releases than anything else. And Space Marine 2 kind of feels like that. And don't take any offense to this. I know some people are going to be up in arms about it, but this doesn't feel like a Game of the Year candidate because it's not doing anything extravagant or incredible or different than anybody else, other than the fact that it's using themes that apparently people are allergic to nowadays. But with that said, it's just a good game. It's just a damn good game, and that's it. And it's worth the money. I'm sick and tired of games that are coming out that feel like they need to be the game, that need to send a message, that need to change our minds, that need to tell these extravagant stories and do something that nobody's ever done before. Well, I do think there's a place for those games, and I still want to see those games. The problem is that almost every single game feels like it wants to be that game now. And there's just not enough room for it, or creativity for that matter. Yeah, I'm looking at you. You know who you are. Concord. Sorry, shouldn't have said that. Anyway, that's all I have for the video. I want more games like Space Marine 2. I want more junk food, and I'm not afraid to say it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends. Follow me on Twitch. I'm trying to get to 10K followers. It's, you know, I got 100K here. Let's get a 10K there. Come on, man. Figure it out. Anyway, stay cool, stay righteous. Stay safe, my friends, and hail the Emperor. Peace.
Family, 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 family.